Okay, it looks like we're live. All right, cool. All right, my name is Choi, and my Substack is Coherent Body. That's my body of work. I'm here with Roni Davis of What Good Girls Eat. We are talking about body, I guess body size, because that's what Jillian Michaels do. We're talking about a specific video where personal trainer and weight loss coach Jillian Michaels is debating a group of people in the body positivity movement. And it was the whole thing was kind of distasteful for me because they were just not even talking to each other. And so when I sent it to Roni, she said, "Oh, I have so much to say about it." So I'm like, okay, let's say it in a live because I think there's a lot of good things that we can process here. And I think the main thing that both of us agreed on was in that video, they're not even in the same arena. They're not talking about the same things. Do you want to, because you summed it up, and I think that was really clear in how you summed it up.
Yeah, so I'm in menopause, so I don't even remember how I summed it up half an hour ago when I messaged you. So
let me.
with me.
Okay.
And it's also been a few hours since I watched it, so who knows how much I'll remember. But yeah, so and just for context, as I talk, I used to be a personal trainer. For anybody that's watching and doesn't know me, I used to be a personal trainer. I was a personal trainer for almost 10 years. And when I first became a trainer, I very much liked Jillian Michaels and her approach. And that was kind of the approach that I took. The longer I became a trainer, the more I started realizing the problems with that approach. And I started moving away from that sort of stuff. And now I'm completely on the other side, out of the fitness industry entirely. And I really work to change the way we think about healthy eating and healthy living and weight and all of these things. And so I'm kind of coming from it from a perspective of both sides. Mm-hmm. I've seen both sides. So yeah, to answer your question, it definitely felt like they were talking past each other. Jillian was focusing on trying to prove weight impacts health and this objective idea of health and what it should look like and be like. And the body positivity side was coming at it more from the perspective of the human aspect of it, the impact that the focus on weight has had on them, and the impact that coming out of that and moving into the body positivity movement has had on them, the positive impact that that's had on them. And it very much felt like they were talking about two completely different things.
Completely different. Like if there's a continuum, it's like first you go into a place where you are accepting your own body because that's your container. And if you don't even want to be in your own container, then you got to go through there first to make a change. And that's my perspective. Like you have to be in a place where you feel resourced. And if you feel completely not incongruent with your own body, then it's hard to make a change.
And it's really hard to feel congruent with your own body, to use your word, when the entire world is telling you that your body is wrong and that your body is dangerous even, right? It's really, really hard to feel safe in your body, to connect with your body, to feel good about wanting to treat your body well. It's really hard to get proper medical care in a body that's being oppressed by an industry that keeps telling you that it's not appropriate the way that it is. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And so there was a lot of really good points, I think, that the body positivity side brought up, even though I felt like they did it really poorly. But it was like they were talking up against a brick wall, because she was there with her agenda. And I said to you, I think in the message, that it just felt so much like this is what the weight loss industry does. They have their agenda and they don't listen to the people that are being harmed by it.
Which is so interesting, right? Because it's like the whole point of having a business is to listen to the customers, to understand what they want and need. And that's there's no listening in that.
I think that used to be the point of having a business, and for many of us it still is.
Mhm.
But I think in the grand scheme of capitalism and the machine that is the weight loss and health industry, I think that has been completely and totally lost because they don't have to listen to the customers because they lobbied to get weight declared a disease. And so they don't have to listen to the customers anymore. It doesn't matter what the customers say or think
There's
because
always
they've
people.
decided that they have a disease and that they're going to cure them.
Mhm.
And that something Jillian said really bothered me. And I'm going to see if I can try to remember the framing that she used. My screen keeps going black. I'm not sure why.
Oh,
Um,
we still see you.
it's framed as though it's framed as though like from the weight loss industry's perspective, from Jillian's perspective, it's always framed like oh, what was the exact line she used? I can't remember, but something along the lines of like, it sucks to be in a fat body and it sucks to diet, and so you have to. It was about what sucks more, right?
Mm,
And that tends
okay.
to be kind of the weight loss industry's
Mm.
standard message, right? Both things suck, and so you have to decide which one sucks more. If you feel like it sucks more to be in a fat body than to diet, then you diet and you fix it. Is kind of the attitude that the weight loss industry has, and Jillian as well. Um, and it sounded to me like her defense of not being body positive
Mhm.
was that if we're too body positive, then it won't suck enough in the body that we're in.
Oh, I see. I don't remember her saying that, but yeah, I mean, I don't remember that part of the thing, but that makes
She
sense.
didn't say that specifically, but that was the vibe that I was getting. And some
Mhm.
of that might be my perspective from being in the industry and
Yeah,
reading through the lines, like recognizing the messaging and what they're actually saying behind the
yeah. I
words.
think about, the addiction world and the whole concept of rock bottom and what that means, and some people, I mean, I think that the issue is when you're dealing with something that's so internal and so existential that people respond to different things. The mechanism of change that makes you perceive something different enough that you want to be out of that situation can can be a long ways off because you still need to land before you take off, or you push back when you get to that point. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like one size fits all because some people do need to hit rock bottom and it changes them. Like my brother-in-law,
So,
he was, yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
so no, I didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just to say I agree. I agree with the main point. Like you really do have to get to a point where it's more uncomfortable to stay where you are than it is to change. I
Yeah.
fully agree with that.
Yeah. And
But the
that needs to
framing,
be their journey to find it rather than you pushing on them because it
it
doesn't work.
100%, and also the framing that if you're too body positive, then you take away that suffering is horrific to me
Yeah,
because
it is. Yeah.
it's saying that if you're in a fat body, you should suffer.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
Exactly.
supposed to suffer if you're fat, and if you're not suffering enough when you're fat, then you should suffer to get rid of it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Do you
it's
see what I'm saying?
abusive.
Like, yeah, it's like we expect that you're going to suffer and that you need to suffer
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
not in the body that we think you should be in. And
Yes.
I
Yeah.
just think that take is so gross.
Yeah.
Um,
And it goes both
in addition
ways.
to the fact that it's a really demotivational take.
Yeah, and it goes both ways. Like, right now with the Ozempic craze, and I'm in Los Angeles, so
Oh
the
yeah.
the way, women are disembodied in terms of how we're valued, is and all the plastic surgery, all of that stuff really gets to the core of what is your value. If you can't feel the intrinsic value of who and how you are in this moment, regardless of what you want to change, if you can't sink into that value states, it's really hard to make a change that will endure because it's not coming from a place that has enough energy or resource or roots to take hold and stay.
Right. And a lot of the backlash against body positivity messaging tends to be, again, if you don't hate your body enough, you won't be motivated to change it. If you're not suffering
Yeah.
enough in it, you won't be motivated to change it. But it's the completely wrong approach, because you can't learn to take care of something and work with something that you hate, right?
Yeah.
Which is one of the messages I think that the body positivity movement is always trying to get the weight loss industry to recognize, because we treat ourselves the way we believe we deserve to be treated. So if we're living in a body that everybody is saying is bad and wrong and worthless and unhealthy and all of this, it's incredibly difficult to connect with it, right? To want to be nice to it, to care about it, to care
Yeah.
about taking care of it. And so then the motivation becomes external. It becomes, well, I have to change it because of what other people think. And we know how fragile external motivation is.
Yeah. I mean, that goes to the core of a lot of changes. And the thing with body size, let's just keep it simple on those terms, because they're, I guess, they encompass a lot of different things, but body size is like other people have the right to make presumptions of what you should be doing.
Yes. And
Which is
also,
the underlying message.
there's also assumptions about health based on body size. Because I remember at one point Jillian was saying, oh God, again, I made so many notes that they're not even going to be useful to me because there's too many to find what I wanted to say. But there was one part where one of the women said, so then what are we even debating then, or something? And Jillian replied, well, we're debating health. And the woman said, well, but I feel better now. Like my health is better now that I'm in this than it was then. And Jillian's like, no, it's not. And again, I'm paraphrasing the conversation. It probably didn't go exactly like that, but that's basically what it was. It was like, no, because people that put on weight are unhealthy. Like there's this blanket assumption in our society based on what size somebody is that they're automatically healthy or not.
Yeah.
And that's just wrong. And also none of anybody else's business.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the bigger marker for health is how stressed you are. And if you are, you can find a way to be comfortable in life in a way that's really deeply self-regulating, then that's like more important, really. But problem is we don't have markers for that. We don't have a simple measure of that. We try to measure it in different ways, BMI and stuff like that. But what is the real measure of that? We don't have a way to measure that. I don't know if we ever will, because emotions are so, and emotional regulation is so hard to measure. It's complicated. So
yeah, and one of the things that stuck out to me as well is that really showed, I think, the obsession that our culture has with body fat and how we look and health, and how little it has to do with health or caring about health. Was at one point somebody mentioned the social determinants of health. And Jillian was like, blank stare, and the woman was like, do you know what that is? And Jillian was like, no,
I think it was a nutritionist, right?
Yes, maybe a dietitian. Yeah. And Jillian was like, no, explain it to me. And my notes, literally in all caps, yelling with exclamation points. My notes are, Jillian does not understand the social determinants of health. You're telling me that you're interested in improving health for people. You care about people's health, and you don't even know what this phrase means? Never mind how much of an impact it has. I swear, if it would have been a cartoon, there would have been steam shooting out my ears. Okay, Ronnie, calm down. Calm down. Like, how do you claim to be a health expert and care about people's health when you don't even know what the phrase means, what they are, or how big of an impact they have? It's
Yeah.
not about health. It's never been about health. It's about controlling the size of people's bodies because we live in an inherently fat phobic society. And so the body positivity side is coming in and saying, hey, this is really harming us.
Hmm.
And here's
So
why.
on the other side of that, like how do, because here's the things with support groups, identifying and finding comfort in certain groups is like when you become there's and I don't know what the positivity movement, what their stance is on this, but let's say you decide that I do want to lose weight. Like, do they kind of like side eye you a little bit, saying, "Oh, you're falling victim to the demands on what your body should look like,"
Mhm.
or are they pretty accepting of that?
So, to be fair, I don't consider myself part of the body positivity movement. Not that I think that it's inherently wrong or bad. There's just parts of it that I don't align with completely. And so I don't consider myself to be part of it. So I wouldn't want to speak on their behalf because
Mm-hmm.
I don't consider myself completely aligned. Um, but I do know that very often there have been in the past um, different, famous influencers or stars or different
Oh
people
yeah. Hmm.
that have been sort of the face of body positivity,
Hmm.
living out loud in these big, beautiful bodies who have lost weight publicly.
Yeah, I think I
And
saw like a headline, and then so what's the they get
I, th-
backlash?
I think yes, there's often backlash, and I think based on what I've seen and my assumptions, again, I'm not speaking for them, but I think that there's some feelings of almost betrayal or abandonment that
Betrayal,
happen.
exactly. And that's, if you're hitching your identity to something that's changeable, then yeah, there's a real desire to maintain that, to stay in the in group, but if you feel like you can leave, then yeah, you can change it. But yeah, it creates a creates a bind for people who are not leaders in the field, let's say, but they found a lot of friendship and affiliation with people on a level where it's really not the core of who they are.
Well, yeah, and I think that that goes to, sort of another problem that I have with some of the body positivity movement, um, in that it simplifies the issues around the struggles that we have with body and with food.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that that really shows some of the ways that it does that because at least what I've seen from, again, from the outside is there'll be one particular figure like that, like Lizzo or somebody, for example, I think is one example of somebody that was sort of held up as the icon and then she lost weight and people were mad. So you'll have somebody like that that everybody kind of starts to gravitate towards and follow and all of this because she helps them feel better about themselves
Yep. Mhm.
because they see themselves in her and she's not caring, so it feels like it gives them permission to
Uh-huh.
to not care. Like it's like she acts as a bit of a barrier between them and the messaging that made them feel bad in the first place.
Right, but it's still external.
It's still external.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not anything that actively is really helping them change any of the reasons why they got there in the first place. And
Mhm.
so I think it's really fragile in that regard. I think that a lot of it can be really shallow too. Like I remember at one point, another point I was kind of yelling at my screen. There was one woman in the very, very beginning. They were talking, it was talking about loving yourself or something. And she's a very thin, conventionally attractive woman sitting there in her cute little outfit. And she says, you just have to invite love into the space. And that sounds all like
Right,
wonderful and whatever. And
right.
sure, okay, hippy dippy, whatever. I love that. But and then Jillian's like, well, how? And she's like, well, you just have to stand in the mirror every day and tell yourself you're beautiful. And I'm just like,
I totally don't remember that. I must have just blocked that out because it was so like non-consequential. Which is just like, like she's a person like you can't take her seriously. She doesn't have anything to say. Yeah,
the
that's not
problem is, though, that's the kind of, which brings me to another point. We could talk about this all day. So the problem with that, though, is she is fairly typical of a lot of the voices in the body positivity movement.
Okay.
There's a lot of voices, and not even just body positivity, but the self-love movement in itself, right?
Uh-huh.
You just have to look in the mirror and tell yourself you're beautiful and you love yourself and all of this. Like it's such a shallow level of not understanding the problems that got people where they are. And then Jillian on the other side kind of talking at this shallow level of understanding, right? And
Right.
so we've got
Yeah.
these people that are both coming at the same, or at least trying to come at the same topic. Neither side having all of the information that they need to form a valid opinion, but then these are the voices that are being the loudest.
Oh, see, my screen went black too. Sorry.
I think it's
okay,
not here. I think it might just be maybe the computer's fallen asleep or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
Yeah, so you've got on one side, you've got all these voices that don't know enough about what they don't know to know what they don't know, and same on the other side. And so they're arguing back and forth, and it's like, no, wait, you're right, but you're also wrong. And you're right, but you're also wrong. And like you're missing the point.
That's why like the debate format, the whole point is like to bring up points and then you put in a competition so people bring up their best points. But it just doesn't serve for something complicated, dimensional, and especially that has to do with deep internal emotions, because you can't be vulnerable in that arena. And I think that when the two sides can be vulnerable on some level, they can hear each other better. And it really, I don't know, it was so, I just think it did a disservice to people.
Both sides, yeah. But I think it did more of a disservice to the body positivity side, at least with the ones I saw. As I said to you, I didn't finish watching the whole thing because it was getting ridiculous and taking me too long.
Yeah,
but
and
the
it
ones
could be
that
a little bit of a setup too. I feel like I don't know, it just came up in my feed, but I feel like that channel leans more towards, throwing arrows.
Yes, for sure. And anytime there's a debate, the winner that comes out tends to be the one that had the more people on their side when they went in the first place, or the one that was, the loudest and the fastest and the seemingly most confident. Debates aren't usually won or lost based on the value of the actual evidence being presented. They're more won or lost based on the best performance. Jillian certainly has more experience doing the performance than anybody else on that stage. And so I think that sort of did a disservice to the body positivity side.
What was the point where you, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No,
what was the point where you personally started to say, this isn't right? Because you said you kind of worked in that style. What changed it for you?
In my own world or in the debate?
In your world.
So there wasn't one point for me. And so it's kind of always hard for me to talk about it because it was always like little things. But so like, for example, I would hear the way women would talk about their bodies. Almost every single woman that I ever worked with would come to me and, in the beginning, she'd send me her progress photos, or I'd take her progress photos if it was an in-person client. And there were always apologies for how disgusting they were.
Yeah.
And I always hated that because it hurt my heart because I felt the same way at one point. So like I personally knew what that felt like to feel that way. So I started wanting them to stop using that language. That's where it started. Then I started recognizing the harm that that feeling was causing in how they felt about themselves, but also how they treated themselves. So I started recognizing that language and all the shame that my clients struggled with, and so I started trying to shift out of that. I was dealing with some of the same struggles myself.
Mm.
Um, and when I started seeing them in other people, that combination started to help me have a little bit more empathy and understand the situations better. So that sort of started shifting the hard ass approach some. Then when I started learning more about the science of fat and fat loss and why we gain and why we lose and why we don't keep it off and like all of those kinds of things, and what
Mhm.
the science has actually been saying for decades, and also how the weight loss industry has completely created the entire problem themselves to be able to sell. When I started learning that stuff, that really started me deconstructing
Mhm.
and changing my view and my positions. Now, that's not to say Jillian made a few good points. I was surprised that I was still agreeing with some of her points.
Mhm. Wh
Um,
what were
but
those?
her conclusions,
Mhm.
not always, right?
Yeah.
Like you can have a good point or see something in something, but then make a conclusion as a result that's only rooted in what your underlying assumption was in the first place.
Yeah, 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 confirmation bias.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
So
yeah, we're all guilty of that, and, as I see it, I always see it through my lens, which is, like, you need to when you're really emotional and there's a fragility there, you need to find a place where you could be neutral. You can't take 180. If you're really fragile, you can't say, "Well, you just have to, quit the drugs, or you have to just lose weight. You have to eat less and exercise more." It's not a straight line. It's not simple. You have to navigate all the emotional protection, which is a lot of times unconscious, and just let it sit open and let yourself find a place that's neutral, that's not oppressive or not combative or not triggering, and then you start to develop your own strength in that place before you try to make a change, because going, like, with inertia in one direction and then trying to reverse it and turn 180 just doesn't work. You have to stop, turn around in place without the force pushing you in
yeah,
that same direction, and that takes a bit of time. It takes a moment. You can't do it in the conversation. She was like, "Okay, and then what? Then what?" It's like, but that's the question, like, what's the off ramp? And I started to think about that a lot when I was working with people and they would feel better in their bodies. And it's like, why would you drift away from it when you feel so good? And it's so simple and it just folds into your life. What is the resistance? And it's interesting, most of the time when we dig down into it, there is this inner narrative. That's why I help people bring the narrative forward so that they can actually hear it and start to have a place where they're not blaming, but they're just observing the lay of the land.
mm,
And that takes,
yeah,
a little bit of resting in a neutral place first.
yeah, for sure. That was a lot. And as you were talking, there was a place I wanted to go with it, and by the time you were done, I stopped. It's gone. That's why sometimes I interrupt because it's like
Uh-huh.
if I don't get it out when it pops in my head, it's gone forever.
Yeah, no, I totally
Um,
get that. Yeah.
yeah, I blame menopause, although I was probably always like that. Yeah, it's really hard because there are so many layers to the struggle that we have with food and with body. And in my experience from, coming out of the fitness industry and then moving in and doing this work, there's just so much that we're missing. And I love how you talk about the way that you can't just do that kind of 180 thing.
Mhm.
Um, because there's so much truth to that. Like so much of what I think we're missing in the conversation around weight and food and all of that is the humanity under it and
That's
what it actually does
100%.
require to
Yeah.
change. And Jillian used this even in her language. She kept calling it mechanistic eating. And I think what she really means is mechanical eating, like when you're, eating on schedule and eating this thing at this time and, basically dieting. And this was her, like, this was what she kept pushing as this sort of solution. And it's like right there in the name. Nothing about that is human.
Yeah.
It's mechanical.
Yeah.
We're not machines. We're not wired like machines. We don't eat like machines. Not that machines eat. Whoops, my light. Not that machines eat, but you know what I'm saying? Like everything about the whole conversation even tends to take our humanity for granted, and what it takes to change for granted. It takes away our autonomy. It takes away. Yeah.
How do you regain that if you get to a certain point with a mechanical approach? How do you suddenly like find your humanity within that structure and not feel like everything falls apart?
And it's interesting you say that, because your humanity finds you in that. And that's what makes it fall apart. Because everything about your humanity goes, this shit ain't right.
Right.
Sorry, can I curse?
Yeah, you can totally curse. You could totally curse. Yeah, I don't think there's any.
Like this isn't normal. This isn't right.
Yeah.
And so it fights back. Your humanity finds you in it.
Yeah.
But because you're not allowed to be a human, you feel like you failed.
And then getting back to how I found you and how I even got involved in this whole conversation about body image was the fact that people were buying my book for that reason on Amazon Kindle version. And that surprised me because it wasn't within that framework. But, my approach is like you find the humanity underneath your personal story, and that humanity is a body standing on earth. And when you feel the safety and support that comes from that, then that is that neutral zone where I think someone who used to have an eating disorder said that there's a non-judgmentalness about it. So she could, that is, right? So you could feel safe going into a body that is just a human system instead of a body that needs to do this, or a body that doesn't measure up to this, or, all of that goes away. And we just find the support mechanisms in the body and find how to activate them so that you can really, really feel it. Like you're not imagining it and you feel it. And then you have a new skill set. And that skill set isn't around anything that you have to be or achieve or reach. It's just right here available to you. And it is a place of resource, basically.
Yeah. And that's why I think of my work as training, because it's building skills to not just help find our humanity again, but like reconnect with it and work with it. Because it's hard to be a human. Like it's really hard to be a person. We don't talk about that enough. And so, but there are skills that you can learn to kind of come back to that. And I'm fully convinced that 95% of the problems in our world are because our species is so completely disconnected from our humanity.
Yeah.
And from what it means to be alive, to eat and live and feel good and function and thrive. Like we're so disconnected from what all those things mean. I think that's a big part of what causes not just suffering, but also health issues.
Totally. Or, I mean, it could be, if you look at it the other way, that that is precisely because we are connected to our humanity, but we're not listening. We don't have the right set of skills. They're not mental skills. They're attentional skills, perceptual skills, perceiving and turning into the signals that you couldn't hear before because you were listening to a story instead of just a sensation that's neutral, that arises.
we're more plugged into harmful social constructs
Yeah.
than we are to what it means to be human.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Especially these days with the spread of social media, the way it frames our perception. But, things like
Yeah.
this, like you're my first Substack friend, is great to be able to connect and have a conversation that goes a little deeper, that looks at things two more steps. Because right now, they're just taking in information is so transactional and so
Yeah.
surface level. And the more and more places like Substack allow you to be more dimensional. It's I think just a great way to just start to shift the way you perceive things.
Yeah, and I'm excited for my also my first Substack friend, but pulling me onto a live too because I haven't done a Substack live before, and this is such a great way to connect. So maybe we'll be able to do some more of these.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Roni. That was fun. I'll talk to you later.
All right, see you.
Bye bye.